Vai.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the sixth episode of the AI Evaluation Code. Hi, Matteo. How are you today?
Not bad. Thank you so much, Margaret.
Thank you, Matteo, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Today, we're going straight into a very interesting topic. We're going to talking about AI creating value. So everyone has been talking about it, right? But sincerely, in deals, I'm just not seeing it. I'm seeing a lot of companies that tell me that they're claiming to have AI, they're claiming huge, massive productivity improvements, but these unfortunately are not being translated into their valuations. So, Matteo, let me ask you directly, what is the disconnect?
Yeah, what a question. This is, yeah, AI is posing us all sorts of questions nowadays. I would say this, the disconnect on the surface is quite simple. There is this kind of illusion where, companies that think they're using AI is the same, equals owning value, yeah? But it just doesn't happen like this because, in my view, most businesses today are they're doing a few things really. They're improving productivity. Um, so improving productivity means obviously creating more output, but also they are automating tasks and they are reducing costs. Now all this is it's not really value creation. That's efficiency, yeah. And we know efficiency doesn't drive valuation multiples. And I just wanted, obviously, given your experience about this in mergers and acquisition, how do you see this view? How do you see this in your own activity, really?
I mean, I completely agree with everything you just said. In M&A, we actually test it rather quickly. Um, a company usually tell us we have embedded AI, and we usually go, oh, great, let's have a closer look then. But then when we look specifically at what is going on, we see that there's no proprietary logic. They don't own the logic really. There's no control of the data. It's not systematic. It's all over the place. Usually entailing manual input, manual adjustments. Um, I love the expression that they used to use, massaging the data, which always
Mm.
I find very scary. And there's no pricing power per se, right? So in these scenarios, AI completely disappears in the valuation, right? It might give you a better cost structure, so potentially better profit, but this is not what is a game changer with embedded AI, right? The multipliers would just not be there. Well, they would be if you had done the proper work.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say this gives a lot of room for thinking, yeah. And this is why I always refer back to the eye valuation triangle because the first pillar of the triangle is the intellectual property. Um, and, again, I always say, positioning a structure first, and then everything else matters later, but not without a structure, not without positioning. Um, Now, we know very well that intellectual property is where you really define what you own. And when you define what you own, and when you make it defensible, commercially viable, everything becomes really more logical and there is really valuation. Why am I saying this? Because really AI, in my view, only matters when it becomes monetizable, scalable, independent from the founder. Now, AI is such a great opportunity for many because it will actually um, accelerate really the way in which you create what you own as well. You can actually, go from the various phases of IP, of intellectual property, in much faster way. For example, you can go from codification into protection, and then from protection, you go to commercially embedding, and then the value transferability. But again, not only you can be faster, but you also have to be much more structured, because if you don't do the right sequencing, you can actually, leak value, and with AI, that's not forgivable. So it doesn't generate recurring revenue. If it doesn't generate recurring revenue, really, what I'm saying is not really intellectual property. I mean, I've seen, for example, a video AI business that has got all the intellectual property in the world, but it doesn't generate recurring revenue. It's a pity. That's a big potential uplift that can be applied to a business like that, because instead of generating revenue that is based on effort, you base revenue. You have revenue effectively that are based on structure, on real intellectual property monetization and commercial embedding. So yeah, that's the way I see it myself, really.
Thank you, Matteo, for this. We're going to make a short interruption because we love hearing from you guys, and it was very useful last week. So let's make this real. Could you please type in the chat if you're using AI, if you think AI is helping your operations, or if you're selling AI, which means that you're directly generating revenue from it. Okay, we're going to wait a few seconds for people to type in their answers.
So interesting question, yeah, because you're saying, are you using AI to help your operation, or are you using AI to directly generate revenues? Two different things, really. I'm curious to see what people will say, yeah.
We can see the answers coming in. So now, be honest. If your team completely stopped working tomorrow, would AI still produce revenue in your company? What do you think, Matteo?
Well, this answer, whether your teams stop working tomorrow and then AI does not pursue revenue, really, it defines your valuation gap, really. So I always say, if you got nothing documented, AI has got nothing to scale. But if you start documenting, if you start to really professionalize your business in that way, then AI will start scaling your business. And I see this every day with so many examples, really.
Absolutely. So now let's shift the lens a little bit. When we historically bought of IP, would think what patents, copyrights, but today that definition has changed. Now we're talking algorithms. So what do you think actually changed, Matteo?
I would say I will start with a word that it's really tells you what's happening here. It effectively changes everything. Um, in the past, intellectual property was really static. Yeah, you protected it. Maybe you license it. Yeah, but that's legal IP. I want to talk about commercial IP now. Intellectual property is really dynamic. Today in this AI world, AI-driven world, it's really not static anymore. It learns, it improves, it scales globally. I don't know how many people have heard about recursive self-improvement. Is effectively a flywheel. So a flywheel that goes from just one pattern or maybe a few patterns, and then it becomes so powerful. It can become actually your intellectual property, and it can become so defensible, so powerful. And most importantly, it can be monetized continuously. So this is really where too many people haven't caught up, really. Your algorithm can become so much faster at generating results, really.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key difference in transactions, right? So buyers, they don't they don't care anymore about just the protection. So basically the previous definition of IP or the historical definition is not longer enough. What they want is revenue predictability, scalability, and transferability.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more on these three things: revenue predictability, scalability, and transferability. And let me break it down structurally. AI driven IP has three layers effectively. The first one is the data layer. So, what you uniquely own and collect, you know? As I always say, data is really your IP now. It's worth more money. Data can be worth more money than buildings or machinery in your balance sheet, you know, if you obviously account for it. The second layer after data is algorithm layer. Now, once you own data, the question is how do you transform data? Okay. So this is where there's a big shift, really. Now, what's the first step? You know, we talk about data, how you transform it. Now it's about monetization layer. How do you convert all this into revenue? Again, data, algorithm, and now monetization. Now, most companies, they only focus on algorithm. So they don't cross that path where they're going to monetize, you know? They think, okay, I got data, now I go do algorithm. But where is monetization? Now, that's the mistake.
Absolutely. And I think in deals, it's very, very rare to see the monetization of algorithm. It's primarily ignored almost because valuation sits in the cash flow, not in the code. And it's completely disregarded, but that is one of the biggest mistakes. So let's look and go a bit more into practicality of things. You're advising companies on valuation architecture. How do you actually turn AI into revenue?
Yeah, this is where I was talking about the mistake that many people before, they don't do it, you know? Um, and people are misled by financial statement. They say, oh, well, financial statements are there to tell me what's going on. That couldn't be further from the truth, you know, because you know that's totally different in terms of what really happens. So again, that's why, you know, if you look at the revenue, what does the revenue tell you? Nothing unless you go deeper. So there are really four dominant models. Okay, so this is where businesses either they unlock valuation or destroy it, even if they've done the right path with data and algorithm. You now need to really convert it into revenue. So what's the model one? Model one is subscription. AI as a continuous service, it matters because it's predictable, scalable, and investor friendly, as you said before. So obviously that's an easy path to understand. What's the model number two? The model number two is usage based, you know. Um, you pay per output, API calls, transactions, processing. That's extremely powerful in AI. And actually, that's what I've seen in one of the businesses I was advising a few weeks ago. They were not doing this usage-based type of model, and they were missing out a big time because they were a video AI business. So that's an important one. So model two usage-based. Now, what's the model number three? It's embedded pricing. Now, AI is invisible, but customers pay more for the result, okay? So this is really at the core of really intellectual property models, where your customer is actually receiving a benefit, yeah? A benefit that is beyond the cost at which it's produced. Um, you know, we could actually go into a non-AI type of business where whatever you produce for the customer is worth thousands, millions of times the cost for you. That's where I always say, the people that sell a diamond like a furniture, you don't with AI. If you got a diamond, you sell it as a diamond, not as a furniture. Now, Model 4, to reinforce the contrast between the diamond and the furniture, is outcome based, and that's the strongest model. Strongest model. It works a bit like, if you're receiving a benefit of $1 million per annum and it costs me $10, I'm not going to charge you $20 because I want to make $10 profit. Yeah. Now, you tie AI directly to financial outcomes. Okay. Give you an example, which actually is happening a lot in my network at the moment, actually in a customer I'm working with. How much cash did you recover thanks to AI? Uh, how much cost did you save? Um, how did you uplift your revenue from that? You get paid on performance. So, and because the cost of AI usually, once you've done the setup well, is so low, but the benefit you provide is so high, that's a huge world of profits that you can open up for your business.
Absolutely, and I'm going to speak for the audience or on behalf of the audience. Please, if you have any questions at this stage, don't hesitate to contact us, send us a message, or comment in the video. Now, you heard everything that Matteo just said. We're going to take really the deal perspective now. The closer you move towards usage embedded in outcomes, which are practical, the more interest you're going to get from your investors and then the higher multiples. The reason is very simple. It's because your risk is decreasing, right? So you become basically repeatable, measurable, and transferable, which is all what M&A is about, really.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I'm so much, so much agree with this, because AI is not valuable because it's intelligent, yeah, because you need to use that intelligence. Um, it is valuable because it creates exactly what investors, like you deal with every day, Margaret, want. What do they want? Well, they want predictable cash flow. So that's what they want. And let's now take a 90 seconds break, if you agree with me, Margaret, because I want to show the trailer of Fell Pivot Scale. Now, that's the book that was released on the 1st of March this year. And in this trailer, you will see why this book matters so much now in AI-driven economies, but not just in AI-driven economies, also because there's been such an important shift in our economies. We now know, for example, the S&P 500, the valuation is 92% really decided by intangible value. So AI plays such a big role on this. And because we live in an unprecedented period in our history where we go an unprecedented expansion in private capital, there's going to be an additional $10 trillion of capital looking for businesses to invest. So this book is going to matter to so many of you. So it's going to be 90 seconds. Enjoy this trailer, and we'll see you again in another 90 seconds. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So now that you've heard all the different models, you had a lens on what investors look for. Let's pressure test this. Which model do you think you're using today? So I'm going to say them again. One is subscription. The second is usage. Third is embedded. The fourth is outcome. Let me repeat again the questions. First is subscription. The second is usage. The third embedded, and the fourth outcome. Again, looking forward to your answers in the chat. Um, and while you answer, let me ask the real question. And I think that's the key question, $1 million question is, are you pricing AI or are you giving it away inside your service? What do you think,
Yeah,
Matteo?
interesting question because I'll tell you what's happened in the last few weeks, and it's happening a lot in my experience. Now, most businesses are giving it away because they don't understand the power of intellectual property based model where you are producing an outcome for a customer. Now, think about the economic benefit the customer is receiving. Okay, that's where value leakage really happens. And it's been happening, to be honest with you, in my career for decades now. I've seen businesses that were producing benefit. I'm sorry if I go back again uh, to that comparison, diamond like a furniture. That's donating value. That's really where you see great innovation being wasted.
Absolutely. And let me bring it back to M&A as well. But when AI is not properly monetized, um, you won't feel the benefit in your valuation. So basically, if you sell your company, you're giving it away. It doesn't reduce your risk, so lowers the interest of an investor, and it doesn't attract buyers, right? Basically, you're making your business becoming irrelevant.
Yeah, this is. I mean, if your investor lens are so precious here because they tell us, what the investor are really saying in your M&A activity, and when it's monetized properly, really AI, that's when it transforms the entire business model because it strengthens all the three sides of the high valuation triangle. The first side is the intellectual property monetization. That's where you really start. You standardize your service, your price, you create really scalability with your data, the algorithm, and the monetization. Then leadership scalability, because eventually it's all about really after you decide what you own, it's about what you can really transform. Yeah. How do you transform what you own? And then it's global expansion because today, well, let's face it. I mean, you will have seen this obviously in your activity as well, Margaret, but um, in an AI-driven economy, you have to think global so much earlier than you did 10, 20, 30 years ago. Because if you don't think globally, your competitors will think globally before you do, and you will lose market share.
Exactly. And basically, that's when we see um, stronger deal interest, um, faster processes, and also better negotiating positions, which is exactly where you want to be in when you're being approached by an investor.
Yeah, I can see exactly your point of view as an investor because well, let's say this now, and I'm saying this. I haven't seen obviously the transformation. You're not really selling a business really as such. You're selling a system. You have to create that system, and this AI will amplify your ability to do that. If you are bad, you will get worse. If you are good, you can become great. If you follow obviously this the suggestion we're giving you today, of course, yeah.
Absolutely. So before we move on, one final question, and please be brutally honest. This is to help you. Um, if you pause your business today, would AI still generate revenue? Yes or no?
So interesting question. So effectively, what you're asking the audience is, if your business was gonna post today, it's an activity. If AI still generates revenue, yes or no? Again, this is the question that many people, yeah, need to answer because again, when they think AI is gonna increase valuation, you need to answer this question. So, if the answer is no, you do not have really intellectual property within your AI, really. You probably have AI usage, yeah. And that's the difference, the difference is really your valuation gap, and so that's where, yeah, many people need to think about it. I'm curious about what the answer are here.
Okay, I'm really looking forward to seeing all your answers. Again, please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions, put them in the chat or contact us via message. Next week, we have an exciting episode. We're going to move forward because monetizing IP is just one part of the equation. But investors, they don't invest in IP alone, right? They invest in leadership, their trust. So we're going to explore that in a lot more detail. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Matteo, again, for these very great insights that I hope is going to really help our audience.
Thank you very much, Margaret. And I'll say this, in order to help the audience, I would like to, for people to actually look at the body of this post, that generated this event. There is a link to a document you can actually access. It's about AI monetization scorecard. Are you creating revenue or just using AI? These are 20 questions that you'll be able to check on the post, on the body of the post. Go ahead, have a try on this because that's going to be very valuable. So it will allow you to see where you stand, what's your position with AI, whether it's really going to change your valuation or whether you just create inefficiency, which they don't, unfortunately, create really, uh, uh, a high valuation. And I'll be, me and Margaret will be checking all these one by one. We'll get back to you personally. So you'll be able to see where you stand on this, and obviously, if you want, we can also have a free call on that, a 15 minutes check after we tell you what we find in this scorecard. So no, thank you very much for this. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Next week. Yeah.